Anyway, hallo Leute, ich bin Wilson Ezama und ich komme aus Nigeria. Ich bin gerade in Berlin und ich bin derzeit in meinem Masterstudium im Prozess, Energie und Umweltsystemstechnik. Und ich bin sehr glücklich und ich freue mich sehr, hier zu sein, mit Ihnen zu sprechen. I like the idea of learning a new language in addition to experiencing other cultures. German, they say, is pretty close to English, and it's true in some cases because in the evolution of the English language, it has roots in German, French, and Latin. The knowledge I have been offered here so far in my master's program has been on the assumption that I should have acquired a certain amount of knowledge and experience academically in order to do a master's. A very practical system of education, because almost all the courses I took, we had multiple assignments, we had multiple projects, hands-on projects, where you had to apply the knowledge you received in classroom to either build processes. Learned a lot, and there's still a lot to be learned, because it's a process, it's a structure that is built on further development, further research. So nothing is set in stone. And I remember also from another course I took, the first 20 minutes of the lecturer comes with news updates on aspects of the course contents that we were discussing at the time. And it was also a course based on energy transition, energy trades, energy development. And this was during the peak of the Russian-Ukraine war that affected gas supplies to Germany and most of Europe. So while we were discussing energy supply and sustainable supply of energy, trying to meet the demands during winter, we had actual information from the. So 5 flags and their countries. I hope I'm not wrong. So I said this is Italy. Did I? Was this Italy? Yeah, Italy. This is Ukraine. This is Turkey. This is Germany. This is France. And I said this is Poland. Hi, my name is Wilson Ezama. I'm a Nigerian who is currently living in Germany. I came here for studies, a master's studies in process, energy and environmental systems engineering after a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I've been in Germany for 2 years now, and hopefully after my studies I intend to practice the profession, gain some experience, and someday put it to use back in Nigeria.
So you're one of the nation building people.
Yeah, I mean it's a thought that comes to mind eventually, because it's a process. At the beginning, you are just happy that you have escaped the Nigerian condition, but eventually, after staying here for a while, it's worthy of note that you should be able to contribute your little bit to making Nigeria back home as good as what we experience here. So at some point down the line, I should be able to do the same. I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Nigeria, after which I had the opportunity to work in different subsectors of the oil and gas industry and also on a construction project. Afterwards, I moved to Germany for my master's, and I'm currently at the end of a master's program in Berlin for process, energy and environmental systems engineering. It's a very long name. And basically it covers all the aspects of energy generation and supply. So simply put, how we generate energy. So for gas or petroleum product, which is from refined crude oil, we also consider renewable energy sources like solar, wind, hydro energy. We also consider geothermal energy, which is energy extracting heat directly from the earth to produce electricity or other sources of energy like heating or cooling. And most people are very familiar with electricity as probably the only form of energy, but we consider beyond electricity, like I've already mentioned, heating, which is very vital in Europe for the winter periods, and cooling for industrial processes as well. And the current, how this plays into society as it is. So with the advancement in technology in the world, a lot is highly dependent on sustainable energy which should be available at all times. This is a problem that we still have in Africa, anyways, at least for Nigeria, I can speak of. But here, at least, the technology has been established, but it's right now it's a focus on how to sustain this and make it more reliable, more available, make it cheaper. And that is the overview of the focus of my master's program and how it directly connects to the livelihood of people. So, my journey to Germany started out with an application for scholarship. Like my decision to study abroad, I started out applying for scholarships. So, my particular case, I applied to the PTDF scholarship from Nigeria, and the PTDF has a lot of partnerships with countries, including the UK, France, Germany, China, and Malaysia, to train Nigerian scholars abroad with the intention of coming back home to implement what we have learned. So I applied to PTDF, and by the grace of God, I was successful. And trying to decide which country to go to was slightly tricky, but I did a number of researches for all the countries available, and I landed on Germany because Germany is pretty much the powerhouse for modern day engineering when it comes to the core of engineering, manufacturing processes, research, and design. And I was convinced that I would get the best knowledge and professional experience in Germany. So, as part of the PTDF partnership with Germany, we had to apply to the DAD as well, the DRD scholarship. And that was a pretty straightforward application process because they usually make publications with guidelines on how to go about the application, the required documents. So it's pretty much the same documents you would use for any other application or even when you are applying for study abroad. So your previous academic qualifications, your identification documents, birth certificate, local government of origin, your passport if it's available at the time, and you have to write like an application letter or a motivation letter as to why you want to study the particular course you're studying, the universities of your choice, and why you pick Germany as a country or as a destination for your studies. In some cases, you might be required to get recommendation letters from references, either academic references or previous professional contacts who can write recommendations for you. In my case, for a master's application, it wasn't absolutely necessary, but I went ahead to get some recommendation from a professor from my bachelor studies and from a previous employer just to boost my application. And after the rounds of application, there's usually a panel that sits to decide on which applications best fit their requirements, and then they give the results afterwards. And again, I thank God that I was lucky and I was selected to come to my master's in Germany under the sponsorship of PTDF and the DAD. I think the time frame is usually it's a 1 year. In 1 year, everything happens, but my case was pretty unique because it was during COVID, so everything was pretty much, it took a lot longer dealing with the situation that the whole world was thrown into. So it takes a year because I know for one, PTDF usually begins the application and interview processes early in the year from December, January. And immediately after the PTDF is done, there's announcements for that applications as well, which usually comes around the middle of the year towards the end of the year. And by the beginning of the following year, results are usually out, at least for the PTDF DAD collaboration. Results are out by the beginning of the following year. So all of the application process up until the award takes roughly about a year or a year and 3 months, no more than that. But because of the timetable, the academic timetable here in Germany, which the main intake period is the winter semester, which starts in October. So there's a lot of time between when you get your award to come study and when you actually come to Germany to study. So during this period is when you have to put all of your documentation together, prepare for your visa interview, and plan for your travel. As a DAT scholar, part of my scholarship, I had to come earlier than normally because we had to do like a preparatory German language course as part of the scholarship, which is really helpful. And it was one of the motivations to come to Germany because I like the idea of learning a new language in addition to experiencing other cultures as well. So the fact that I could do a preparatory language course with the DID scholarship was really nice. I had that before the actual beginning of studies. So my experience with learning a new language, it's not been easy, I would say, because as a Nigerian, I've spoken English my entire life, and having to learn a new language is quite challenging. German, they say, is pretty close to English, and it's true in some cases because in the evolution of the English language, it has roots in German, French, and Latin, and yeah. But it's one thing to learn a language at a comfortable pace, and it's another thing to be in a society where you need this language to survive on a daily basis. Luckily, like I mentioned earlier, we had the preparatory language course, which pretty much gave us the basics of surviving. You could say hello, hi, you could ask questions, you could go shopping and buying basic things, but handling complex conversations and concepts in the language was still a challenge. And I would say after 2 years, on some level, it's still a challenge. So for me personally, it's the conscious effort to try to improve on the language. Living in Berlin, it makes it easy to communicate because almost everyone here is a foreigner, and the Germans who live in Berlin also speak some level of English, so communication is not much of a challenge. So for me living in Berlin, improving my German language skills is a conscious personal effort. I have to be very intentional about it. Outside of the preparatory language course, I've enrolled in further language courses, learning the language from the up until I'm currently actually still learning at the B2 level, with the intention of with the intention of writing a formal certificate exam sometime early next year. So I mean, it's not something that one can master over a short period of time, because just like I said, I've spoken English my entire life, and this is a language these people have spoken their entire lives, and I've only been exposed to it for 2 years. So in as much as I want to pat myself on the shoulder that okay, I can understand them, they can understand me, can handle simple conversations, but it's still a journey that is going to continue for as long as I live in Germany. So a short introduction of myself in German. Excuse my crooked German anyway. Hallo Leute, ich bin Wilson Ezama und ich komme aus Nigeria. Ich bin gerade in Berlin und ich bin derzeit in meinem Masterstudium im Prozess Energie und Umweltsystemstechnik, und ich bin sehr glücklich und ich freue mich sehr, hier zu sein, mit Ihnen zu sprechen. Okay, studying in Germany it's been very interesting. I would say the structure with studies back home and Germany are pretty much on the same level. But the difference I would point out is the amount of investment that has been put into education back home in comparison to what has been done here. So the knowledge I have been offered here so far in my master's program has been on the assumption that I should have acquired a certain amount of knowledge and experience academically in order to do a master's program. And this assumption is because in the German structure, this information is already given out. So it's expected that for you to be a graduate with a bachelor's degree in engineering, you should know this, and know this. And they are not wrong, because I remember very well that during my bachelor's program, we had a model handbook that highlighted all of the topics that we should have covered during our studies. But like I said, I would attribute it to the amount of investment that we put in education. So most of these topics were not covered, and starting my master's, then you find out that there is this gap in knowledge which you're expected to have, and everything that comes after is built on this knowledge. So for me personally, I felt like it was quite challenging because I had to try to catch up on my personal studies or my personal knowledge, trying to close the gap before trying to take on new information from my master's program. Other than that, it's been very interesting. It's a very practical system of education because almost all the courses I took. We had multiple assignments, we had multiple projects, hands-on projects, where you had to apply the knowledge you receive in classroom to either build processes, or for example, one of the courses I took that had to do with modeling of energy systems, where we considered a country, and we had to design and model that country purely based on renewable energy sources, that is solar, wind, and hydro energy. Try to analyze the energy demand of the people in this country against their population. You analyze the potential for solar energy, the potential for wind energy. Then you try to see how, okay, the installations on this side to supply the needs of this energy and the demand of the country as a whole on this other side. Now, we did the theory and we still had to perform this analysis on a practical level. And we had to go through a lot of data, which was available, fortunately. And another challenge we might have back home in some of these cases would be lack of data. And so it's been really interesting and really, really challenging. So yeah, I've learned a lot, and there's still a lot to be learned, because it's a process, it's a structure that is built on further development, further research. So nothing is set in stone. And I remember also from another course I took, the first 20 minutes of the lecturer comes with news updates on aspects of the course contents that we were discussing at the time. And it was also a course based on energy transition, energy trades, energy development. And this was during the peak of the Russian-Ukraine war that affected gas supplies to Germany and most of Europe. So while we were discussing energy supply and sustainable supply of energy, trying to meet the demands during winter, we had actual information from the news based on things that were happening in Europe at the time. Offered to someone who almost has everything. Another contribution that I think in the years that I will be in this country would be just to be myself. And he said, you people bring the color to Europe. To introduce a lot of white acquaintances to Nigerian food, to Nigerian music. And I tell my story through that.